The Horus Heresy is basically what happens when the most powerful family in human history decides that therapy is for cowards. You have the Emperor, humanity's golden superdad, military dictator, atheist demigod, and absolute champion of never explaining anything properly. Then you have Horus, his favorite son, greatest general, beautiful bald man, and future recipient of the galaxy's worst LinkedIn career pivot. One chaos corruption later, Horus gathers half his brothers, launches a civil war, and spends 7 years turning the Imperium into the universe's largest custody dispute. Canonically, Horus loses. The Emperor gets horrifically wounded, Horus gets spiritually Control-Alt-Deleted, and humanity spends the next 10,000 years slowly transforming into a giant cathedral-shaped HR violation. But what if Horus actually won? Would he become Emperor? Would chaos conquer humanity? Would the Imperium become even worse? Or would Horus realize approximately 12 minutes into ruling Terra that managing Angron, Fulgrim, and Perturabo is significantly harder than overthrowing Dad? Today, because apparently alternate history involving 8-foot demigods is a responsible use of my time, we're finding out. And yes, lore nerds, this is speculative, so put the bolter down, we're here for the vibes. Quick recap for anyone who has not spent 6 months reading books about extremely emotional men and shoulder pads. The Emperor creates 20 Primarchs. Chaos yeets them across the galaxy because apparently child custody laws had not yet been invented. The Emperor eventually finds most of them, gives them armies of genetically engineered sons, and tells them, "Congratulations, go conquer humanity." Great Crusade happens, yada yada. Imperial compliance. Aliens get shot. Magnus discovers Wikipedia. Perturabo discovers over time. Lorgar discovers religion. Angron discovers absolutely nothing good ever. Eventually, Horus gets corrupted by chaos and decides, you know what? Dad sucks. And annoyingly, he is not entirely wrong. The problem is his solution is joining 4 interdimensional emotional parasites and setting half the galaxy on fire. By the Siege of Terra, Horus has backed the Loyalists into the Imperial Palace. Chaos forces are everywhere. The Traitor legions are hammering Terra. The Emperor eventually boards Horus's flagship. They have history's most dysfunctional father-son conversation involving weapons, and Horus gets obliterated. But suppose that fight ends differently. Horus kills the Emperor. What happens next? Short answer, everything gets significantly worse, which in Warhammer 40,000 is genuinely impressive. Picture it. The Emperor is dead. Horus stands over his body. The War Master has won. Terra falls. The Loyalist resistance collapses. Horus finally becomes master of humanity. And for one glorious moment, everything probably feels fantastic. He defeated the most powerful human being who ever lived. He proved himself superior to his brothers. He destroyed the Imperium that rejected him. And then someone asks, so what's the economic policy? Because winning a civil war and running an interstellar civilization are extremely different skills. Horus's coalition is not exactly a stable government. Look at his cabinet. Angron, violently insane demon gladiator. Fulgrim, currently treating every room like an adults-only nightclub hosted inside a meat factory. Mortarion, plague enthusiast. Magnus, psychic nerd with a history of touching things labeled "Do Not Touch." Perturabo, furious because nobody complimented his siege ramps. Lorgar, religious fanatic who now knows the gods are real and unfortunately wants everyone else to know too. Conrad Kurz, Batman if Batman's solution to jaywalking was removing your spine. And Alfarius, possibly. Maybe. Nobody knows. This is not a cabinet. This is a Discord server waiting to implode. Horus administration rating. Military experience, 10 out of 10. Team cohesion, 2 out of 10. Christmas party, absolutely catastrophic. Here is Horus's actual problem. He did not beat the Emperor alone. By the end of the heresy, Horus is juiced up by the 4 Chaos Gods. Khorne gives him rage and martial power. Nurgle provides resilience. Tzeentch provides sorcery and manipulation. Slaanesh provides excess, perfection, and presumably a truly unreasonable tailoring budget. Horus has essentially taken out 4 supernatural payday loans, and now payment is due. Chaos does not give power because it believes in your personal development. The Chaos Gods want humanity. They want souls, emotion, war, corruption, more warp juice. Horus may think he has become master of chaos. Chaos almost certainly thinks it has acquired a very impressive new employee. This is the classic chaos relationship. Step 1. Use our power. Step 2, you're different. Step 3, you can totally control it. Step 4, you are screaming inside a wall. Horus's victory would not create a stable, enlightened empire. It would probably transform humanity into an enormous chaos feeding ground, and once Dad is gone, there is nobody powerful enough left to tell the gods, actually, no. Then we have Terra. Remember the Imperial Webway project? The Emperor had been trying to create a human-controlled route through the Webway, so humanity would no longer depend on warp travel. Basically, he was constructing an interstellar railway because the existing transport system required driving through hell. Then Magnus tried to warn him about Horus. Unfortunately, Magnus's version of knocking involves smashing a psychic hole through the Emperor's protections. Demons flood the Webway. The Emperor spends much of the heresy holding that breach shut, so if Horus kills him, that becomes a problem. A very large, demon-shaped problem. Without the Emperor maintaining the psychic defenses around the Imperial Webway breach, Terra risks becoming ground zero for an enormous warp catastrophe. And there was another failsafe potentially waiting in the background, the Talisman of Seven Hammers. Essentially, the Emperor's emergency strategy for Terra falling to chaos was reportedly something along the lines of, if we lose Earth, explode Earth harder. That is peak 40,000. Most governments have evacuation plans. The Emperor installed the metaphysical equivalent of deleting the save file. So Horus may conquer Terra only to discover Dad left the oven on and wired it to the planet's soul. 8 out of 10 tactical foresight, 0 out of 10 property preservation. Even if Terra somehow survives, Horus now has another issue. His brothers hate each other. The Traitor Primarchs were united mainly by one thing. They hated the Emperor more. Remove the Emperor, and suddenly everyone remembers their own grievances. Perturabo hates Fulgrim. Mortarion hates sorcery. Magnus is literally sorcery wearing nipple horns. Angron barely knows where he is. Fulgrim has moved beyond ordinary concepts like military discipline and wearing trousers. Kurz is increasingly insane. Lorgar has his own religious agenda, and the Alpha Legion may have been running 17 contradictory plans before breakfast. The victory celebration lasts 20 minutes before Perturabo notices that Horus gave someone else the bigger palace. Civil War II begins immediately. This is one of the biggest reasons a Horus victory probably does not create a functional Chaos Imperium. Chaos is inherently self-destructive. Khorne wants conflict. Tzeentch wants endless change and plotting. Slaanesh wants escalation. Nurgle wants decay and stagnation. These gods cooperate in roughly the same way 4 starving cats cooperate inside a bin bag. Their champions reflect that. The Loyalist Imperium is dysfunctional. The Chaos Imperium would be dysfunctional on purpose. But Horus killing the Emperor does not magically delete every Loyalist Primarch. Guilliman still exists. The Lion still exists. Russ potentially still exists. Corax, Vulcan, Dorn, and others could survive, depending on exactly how our alternate timeline plays out. Suddenly, the entire setting flips. The traitors control Terra. The Loyalists become rebels. And honestly, that premise goes unbelievably hard. Imagine Guilliman organizing a surviving human empire in Ultramar while trying to hold civilization together using sheer administrative rage. The Lion launches Shadow Wars against Chaos territory. Corax becomes an actual nightmare insurgent. Vulcan attempts to preserve human populations while everyone else is busy turning planets into ammunition. Dorn? Dorn sees Horus sitting on his father's throne and develops an emotion so powerful that every wall within 6 light-years fortifies itself. The Imperium could splinter into competing human empires. Chaos-controlled Terra, Loyalist Ultramar, independent Forge Worlds, surviving Imperial fleets, random sectors deciding, you know what? Both sides seem terrible. Basically Game of Thrones, except everyone owns battleships capable of sterilizing continents. Now comes the actual nightmare. If Chaos wins the heresy outright, humanity potentially loses the biggest thing protecting it from total warp corruption, the Emperor. Whatever you think about Big E, and there is plenty to criticize, the man was fundamentally opposed to chaos. His entire Webway project existed partly because humanity's reliance on the warp made it vulnerable. Remove him. Chaos spreads. Cults no longer need to hide. Demon worlds expand. Entire populations begin worshipping whichever emotional tumor offers the best sign-up bonus. Khorne gets worlds permanently locked in war. Nurgle gets peasants that smell like the inside of a forgotten gym bag. Slaanesh gets civilizations dedicated to excess. Tzeentch gets bureaucracies so complicated that even the Administratum says, "Mate, this is ridiculous." Humanity stops being merely oppressed. It becomes metaphysically farmed. Every murder feeds Khorne. Every plague feeds Nurgle. Every obsession feeds Slaanesh. Every conspiracy feeds Tzeentch. You are no longer a citizen. You are emotional livestock with paperwork, which is somehow a downgrade from the Imperium. And here is where things get interesting. Horus was not always an irredeemable monster. Before chaos thoroughly corrupted him, he genuinely cared about humanity. He was charismatic, intelligent, diplomatic, arguably more human than the Emperor in some ways. At certain points in the heresy, traces of the old Horus remained buried underneath chaos corruption. So imagine he wins, the Emperor dies, the adrenaline fades, and Horus finally understands what he has done. Terra is burning, billions are dead, his brothers are mutated monsters, the gods are whispering constantly, humanity is collapsing. Congratulations, Horus, you proved Dad wrong. Your prize is managing hell. There is even a tragic possibility that Horus eventually attempts to rebel against chaos itself, and that would be hilarious. Horus Rebellion number 1, down with the Emperor. Horus Rebellion number 2, 6 months later. Okay, turns out the screaming blood gods are also bad. At that point, the chaos gods might simply replace him. Horus thought he was the chosen champion. To chaos, he may only ever have been a very expensive crowbar used to break the Emperor's empire open. Once the door is broken, you don't need the crowbar anymore. There is another theory from the outcome that is even darker. Chaos winning might eventually destroy humanity completely. Why? Because chaos is terrible at sustainability. It consumes, escalates, corrupts, destroys. If every human civilization falls completely to chaos, eventually there may be less stable civilization left to feed it. Think of chaos like 4 roommates who discover the fridge is full of free food. Instead of rationing it, they eat everything immediately, fight over the leftovers, and then set the refrigerator on fire. The galaxy could descend into a nightmare of endless demon wars, fractured human kingdoms, and collapsing civilization. The Tyranids are still coming, the Orcs are still having the best time imaginable, the Necrons are waking up, the Eldar are watching humanity repeat their mistakes while probably feeling extremely smug about it. Humanity may simply burn itself out. The heresy stops being the beginning of 10,000 years of slow imperial decline. It becomes humanity's extinction event.
Here's the funny part. The Imperium that emerged after Horus lost is objectively horrific.
The Emperor wanted a rational, secular human civilization. Instead, humanity created a galaxy-spanning religious dictatorship, worshipping him as a god. Technology stagnated. Billions live in misery. The Inquisition exists. People get turned into doorbells because artificial intelligence is illegal. The Emperor would probably wake up, look around, and immediately ask, "Who did this?" And everyone would awkwardly avoid eye contact. But Horus winning probably makes things worse, because the current Imperium is at least trying, very badly, to preserve humanity. Chaos does not preserve. Chaos feeds. Horus winning swaps a decaying civilization for a civilization actively being eaten by supernatural parasites. Current Imperium, slow, miserable decline. Horus victory, fast, miserable decline, now with additional tentacles. Choose your subscription package. So what if Horus won the heresy? The Emperor dies. Terra potentially becomes a warp disaster. Chaos gains control of humanity. The Traitor Primarchs immediately begin arguing over who gets Dad's bedroom. The surviving loyalists launch a resistance, and Horus discovers that overthrowing the government was significantly easier than running one. Would humanity survive? Possibly. Would the Imperium survive? Probably not. Would Horus enjoy being Emperor? About as much as Perturabo enjoys receiving constructive feedback. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to GrimDerp for more Warhammer 40,000 lore explained with enough accuracy to survive at least the first inquisitorial interview. And comment below, what 40,000 what if should I cover next? What if Sanguinius killed Horus? What if Magnus never broke the webway? Or what if the Emperor had discovered the forbidden technology known as being a decent father? In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And apparently, every war starts with unresolved family issues.